So let's get to this hat. First, I want to talk to you about a crochet hook. I used a Susan Bates. It did tend to make the yarn split a little more. I recommend a tulip as long as it doesn't mess with your gauge. Boy hook is another choice. Also, washing this yarn, do not put it through the dryer. It needs to lay flat to dry in order to keep its beauty. You will need a cotton bamboo blend yarn. I'm using Kubu. It's a 3 weight. You'll use half a cake. Then you'll need a G crochet hook. So let's start by making a slip knot, chain 3, and join in a ring. I have a tutorial on in my beginner playlist. Joining in the ring, grabbing hold of that tail, slip stitching, chain 2, and double crochet in the ring while crocheting over the yarn tail. There's your first double crochet. I like this yarn for this project. It is just a little bit splitty. It will split on you, but I really do like this yarn. You will need to execute 14 double crochets in the ring. Grabbing hold of that yarn tail. I have a split. I'm going to have to back out of there, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I need to execute 14. Let me speed that up. There's my 14th double crochet. Let's go ahead and count real quick. Make sure we're at the right number. I have 14. Now I am not going to join in that chain. I will join in the top of that first double crochet. I'm going to bypass that beginning chain. Slip stitch, chain 4. This will count as a double crochet, chain 1, and then double crochet in that joining stitch. Chain 1. Let me fix that split there. Sometimes you have to back up. There we go. Chain 1 and then 1 double crochet in the next stitch. Chain 1 and a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch. Then chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch. The pattern around is easy. There are 2 double crochets in the first stitch, 1 double crochet in the second stitch, 2 double crochets in that next stitch, a double crochet in the next stitch, and you continue that around. So that will be 2 double crochets, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 1 double crochet, all the way around with a chain space in between each. So I've completed that around and I am at the last point. So I need to chain 1, 1 double crochet, chain 1, now a double crochet, chain 1, whoops, and double crochet in that same stitch. So that stitch holds 2 double crochets, chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, and then slip stitch in that third chain right there. There we go. So that is round 2. Round 3 is fairly simple. All you do is slip stitch under that 4th chain, or that becomes a chain 1 space. Then we need to build and make a beginning V. So chain 4 and double crochet right under that chain space. Now, every chain 1 space will hold a V stitch. 1, 2, and the V stitch is double crochet, chain 1, double crochet under that chain space. Now there are no, well, trying to make a treble there. There are no chain spaces between the V's. So a V, which is double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, in that same space, chain 1 space. Let's execute that one more time. Now let's continue that all the way around. There are no chain spaces between the V's, but remember, we're putting a V in each chain 1 space all the way around. You will end up with 21 V's at the end of this round. We are at the end of round 3. We have V's in each chain space, and it looks a little ripply, but that is okay. This will be totally fine. Those ripples will work out as we continue making the hat. So now we have one more V to make. This will be the 21st V, 21 V stitches. And we join with a slip stitch to the 3rd chain of that beginning chain 4, right there. Now, like I said, it's a little ripply, but it will be okay. Now I'm out of white yarn, so I'm going to pull up a contrasting color at the slip stitch under the chain 1 space, chain 4, and then double crochet in that chain space. If you want to switch colors, this is where you need to do this. So this next round is a double crochet, a V in each chain 1 space of each V around. Very simple. This is a quick row, not a lot of thinking. There's the chain 1 space, there's the chain 1 space. We just execute a V in each of those chain 1 spaces. Now, I got past that little split. Let me hurry on around and I'll meet you at the end of the round. We are at the end of the round. I need to execute one more V and then join to the 3rd chain. The contrasting color helps you see where the V's have been placed, and like I said, place that last V in that last chain 1 space, and then we'll join with a slip stitch to the 3rd chain of the beginning chain 4, or the 3rd chain of the beginning V. There's that 3rd chain. Let's join with a slip stitch. Now, slip stitch into the chain 1 space or under that chain 4 and build again for the next round. But let's stop for a minute. Let's look. Let's take a minute and count to make sure we have 21. We do, we have 21. This next round needs to have an increase. I need to increase the circumference, so I start by slip stitching under that chain 4, building up and making a beginning V by chain 4, double crochet under that chain 1 space. Now I'm going to need to execute 5 V's in the tops of those chain 1 spaces. So I've got 4. Now I need to execute that 5th V and then immediately execute a V between the next 2 V's. Not in a chain 1 space, but between the 2 V's. And that gives me an increase. I need to execute that pattern all the way around of 5 V's in the tops of the V's and then a V between the V's. That will increase our V count by 4. So when we are finished, we will have 25 V's. If you're making a child size, do not make that increase. If you're making a child size, just continue around with 21 V's, and we are here at the last increase. That last increase falls right there, and then it will be one more V. So let's increase right here with a V between the two V's, a V in the top of that V, and then join with a slip stitch. To the third chain. Now, how are we looking? It's looking good. Still a little wobbly, but this fabric is loose and weavy. That little wobble and ripple will turn around for you. Let's count, make sure we have 25. And we have 25. Now let's move on to rounds 6 through 10, which is a single crochet band. So chain 1, single crochet in that joining stitch, single crochet in or under the chain 1. I go under the chain 1, single crochet in that double crochet, single crochet in the next double crochet, single crochet under the next chain 1, single crochet under the double crochet, and you do that all the way around. In each stitch around each double crochet and under each chain 1 space is a single crochet. You do that all the way around, and when you have finished, you will have 75 stitches. Remember, all the way around, don't miss a stitch, and I'll meet you at the end of this round. Where at the end of the round, I'm going to execute a single crochet under that chain 1 in that double crochet, and then join with a slip stitch in the top of that beginning single crochet. Skip that chain 1, and in the top of the single crochet, then build up with a chain 1 and single crochet in that joining stitch, and single crochet in each stitch around for 4 more rounds. And those rounds will be the band on this cloche. It's very easy, just 5 rounds of single crochet. So we are at the end of round 10. Let me execute those last couple of single crochet stitches. And just as before, we join with a slip stitch in the top of that single crochet. Now we're going to need to make a beginning V. We will start making V stitches again, and a beginning V is chain 4 and double crochet in that joining stitch. That makes a beginning V. The chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and that 4th chain counts as a chain 1. So we count over to the 3rd stitch. We skip 2 stitches and make a V. Skip 2 stitches and make a V. And remember, a V is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. There we go. All right, we do that all the way around. Now we're going to execute 5 rounds of V stitches. And we are at the end of the round. I have 1 more V stitch to make. Doesn't that look nice? I love the transition from single crochet to V stitches. It looks so lacy. So skip 2 stitches, execute a V, which is a double crochet, chain 1, miss that split, and double crochet, and then skip those last 2 stitches and join in the 3rd chain of the beginning chain 4. Or the beginning V. 1, 2, 3. Join with a slip stitch. There we go. Now slip stitch over into that chain 1 space and start building a beginning V by chaining 4 and double crochet under that same chain 1 space. And then execute a V in the top of each V around, which will give you 25 V's. And we'll do that for 5 rounds, and I'll meet you at the end of those 5 rounds. Okay, I'm at the end of those 5 rounds. I have 1 more V to make, and we'll join to the 3rd chain of that beginning chain 4. Now we need to go back to executing single crochets. All right, so chain 1, single crochet in that joining stitch, single crochet in the next double crochet, the chain 1, the next double crochet, the next chain 1. A little faster than what I can talk, but you get the idea. A single crochet in each stitch around. That will give you 75 single crochets. You'll do that for 5 rounds. I'm going to meet you just to go over again that you join at the top of that single crochet at the end of each round. You bypass that chain 1, but then you build with the chain 1, and then you continue on around for 5 rounds. We're working on the brim now. This is the brim. You're almost at home, but we have 5 rounds of single crochets, and then we'll have an increase. That increase will be important as it will cause the flare for the cloche. So we have 5 rounds of single crochet. We're going to finish up this round. Join with a slip stitch. Now we are going to single crochet in the first 6 stitches, which includes the joining stitch, and then 2 double crochets in the 7th stitch. So every 7th stitch will have 2 single crochet stitches in it. Let's get around there to that 7th stitch. All right, 2 single crochets, and then after that it's single crochet in the next 6 stitches, and then 2 single crochets in the 7th stitch, just like right there. Do that all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end of the round. When we get to the end of the round, we will have 5 stitches left. So go ahead and execute 1 single crochet in those 5 stitches. Then join with a slip stitch to the beginning single crochet, and you will have 85 single crochets in that round. Then the next round is just a single crochet in each stitch around for another round of 85 single crochets. We're at the end of that round. I don't know if you can see, but there's a little bit of a flare on that brim now. Now let's join to the top of that single crochet, or in that single crochet, chain 1. Now we are going to increase every 11th stitch. So single crochet in the joining stitch, and in the next 9 stitches, then 2 single crochets in the 11th stitch. So every 11th stitch will have a single crochet. Let's get on around. There's the 2. There were 10 single crochets, then 2 in the 11th, all the way around. We are at the last. We have 7 stitches left, so we will single crochet in the last 6 stitches, and then 2 single crochets in the last stitch, and that will give us a total of 92 stitches. Now, there is no more need for an increase. This should give our brim plenty of flare, and you can execute 5 more rows of single crochet, or you can do 7 more rows of single crochet. I chose 7 for this brim, as I wanted extra roll up. You can make this a little longer, and then it will roll back even after you add the embellishments to it. All right, we're at the end now. Let's end off. If you would like to know how to weave in ends, I have a tutorial. I will put a link below. This yarn is a little bit splitty, and it can create a bit of a challenge, but look how nice and long the brim is, and like I said, it easily rolls up. The person that is wearing the hat should be cool and comfortable as they're going through chemo. This is a very soft yarn. The brim rolls up nicely, or they can roll it down, whatever they choose to do, or you can just make that brim a little bit shorter. This light pink hat is a child size hat. The mint green is an adult hat, and the white is an adult hat. Let's start embellishing. So I have a bunch of ranunculuses that I bought at Walmart. Most of the time you can pull the flower end off, not always, but the first one you pull off, make sure you grab it tightly, and you can use the leaves The reason you grab it tightly is sometimes those flowers fall apart, but this had a real secure back to it. But I do want to snip that little tip off with some scissors. And the leaves even have little backs. So I'm snipping that off, snipping off the little tip on the leaves, getting those out of the way, and then just making one simple little arrangement. I'll glue those two together, then cut a piece of white felt. You'll see how I do that. I just make a general cut and then place it on the back of the flower and then just trim it as I need it. You'll see how that works. Just kind of trim, just eyeball it. This is not, each arrangement will be slightly different in size, so it's one of those things you do on the go. Now glue that felt to the back. Whoops, I dropped it. There's the glue. Put that on the back of the flower, kind of push it down in there. Now that felt is the perfect place for you to run a needle and thread, just barely catching it. You don't have to get down into the glue. You don't have to sew those leaves on. You can if you want. You can catch those leaves with needle and thread. Then place it how you want it on the brim. I'm liking that position, so needle and thread and just sew it on. And I hold it on one side. Get it in place, and then I'm holding it, and then just back and forth, just whip it in place. You can tell by the feel that you are grabbing the felt. Now, you can always turn it around and look to make sure, but it's just very simple, very quick. And there we're done. That is nice. That's an adult size hat. Now this hat, I thought, there are two smaller little flowers. Let's see what we can arrange here. Okay, let's put some leaves with it. I like that arrangement. Let's see how it looks when we get it all together. So I glue that smaller flower just onto the side of that flower. It will hold. It's a great treatment. I've done this several times with many of my cloches. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's cut the felt. It's going to need to be just a bit bigger. There we go. I have that. I'll get that glued in place. It does not have to be perfect. All right, let's see how it looks. I'm not happy with that, so I'm going to try adding some more flowers, maybe just slightly smaller than the center flower. I like that application really well, so I'm going to sew that to the hat. Now there's an extra trick I need to show you after I get the larger arrangement sewn on. But with this larger arrangement, I had to constantly turn over and make sure I was catching all of the felt edges. I didn't want any felt pieces to be poking out. So I made sure that those stitches ran all the way around the edge of the felt. So it looks pretty good. It's looking good, yeah. Now, yeah, I saw a spot where I needed to take a few more stitches. All right, now those side roses are going to poke up and look weird. See, there's too much give there. So I want to use the leaf that's on that side rose to just take a couple of stitches onto the brim, but first I'm going to stretch the brim and then tack that little leaf in place. I need to stretch that brim because as the wearer wears the hat and they put that on their head, the brim will stretch, but if the arrangement is sewn on in a tight manner, the brim will look odd and twisted. So you really need to stretch that brim before you decide where to sew that leaf on. And as you can see, I have to do that on both sides. I've done that on both sides. All right, and I gave it plenty of stretch. And as you can see right there, the leaf looks like it's buckled, but that's okay. It needs to be that way so that there is give when the person who is wearing the hat is able to wear that. Oh, what about a bead in the center? Or a piece of vintage jewelry would be pretty. I think I'm going to go with that green bead, maybe a different bead. Not sure yet. But I think that looks pretty. It's fun to decorate and embellish with these, especially if you had Swarovski crystals. If you wanted to make a nice chemo cap or cloche for someone that you love. So make sure if you're using a bead that the holes for the bead are off to the side and you put the glue on the main part. I'm going to add a couple of other little beads, and I'll add a bead to the center of the other one. All right, let's move on. So let's do a very simple, just the flower. No leaves, no nothing else, just the flower for the child size hat. Or you can add a pull tie bow that has been on a clip, or any bow, like a hair bow that is on a clip. You can add that to the brim. I have that in the pictures. So very simple. I've got a bead all ready for that. Just sew that on. I go in from the top. Since it was small, I'm catching the leaves, and now I'm making sure I catch the felt also. The felt is there to protect the wearer from the plastic parts. Plus, it's also a great addition when trying to have something, when you want to have something to catch when you're sewing with needle and thread. There we go. We're all done. How nice is that? Beautiful chemo cloches. And there's the child size hat with a little bow and clip on the side. I also have a beanie pattern. You might have a little extra yarn. I have that video tutorial. I'll put the link down below. It was good to have you on my side of the mountain. I hope you'll come again soon. Bye.